Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our final lesson in Reine's first sons and last daughters. This is lesson 20. It's our final lesson in the novel, and it will continue the theme of atonement, which has imprinted the entire volume. Let's go to block 1. The absolute spoken through art. The painting entitled Retrouvailles, meaning reunion, Coda received a package from Peyton that required a signature. It was the original work of Harlow. Peyton still felt her mother speaking to her through her paintings. Mrs. Velasco had passed and willed the painting to Peyton. It included a personal note that Peyton vowed would be framed alongside her mother's painting whenever it was displayed. The commissioned bridge painting that Peyton had completed that was in the process of being completed for Mrs. Velasco. The personal note from Mrs. Velasco read, "That bridge is that which houses us but also keeps us moving. Remember your mother's painting." Her mother's painting, the title translated as The Reunion of the Self. Peyton declared out loud, "Now I know how to complete my bridge painting." The rediscovered and reclaimed self. Her mother's painting depicted a woman bathed in sunlight at a table reading through old love letters. Peyton next received a phone call from Ashton asking her to join him in Malibu. When Peyton went to retrieve her luggage, she discovered that Adler had already packed and was getting ready to leave. The separation was a reality. Unfortunately, the separation was a reality. Let's go into block 2 and take a look at the broken circle in need of repair and in need of mending. The circle between Peyton and Adler, and between Peyton and her self-identity. It was time to strive toward, or at least contemplate, the reunion of the self. Retrouvailles. A new authentic self. The authentic self, Peyton attempted to remove her wedding ring in Malibu, but could not remove it. Peyton knew it was a sign that she would grieve this loss for a long time. She would grieve this loss for a long time. She called up her mother's painting to memory, The Last Start, and it was most assuredly a part of her life again, the lodestar in paint, guiding her life again. The eschatological self and the last start. It was time for Peyton's retrouvailles, reunion with her true self. She must become brave and decisive. Life is short and hurls forward when you get older. She called Royce for some comfort and for some support. She also desired communion with the afterlife, but I thought this was a good point. But if someone did not listen to the realm of spirit in this life, it's probable that they will not listen in the afterlife. Her new self foothold must come from true surrender to the real. And that's absolutely the truth. Peyton knew that her redefined self would best be expressed in paint, as she always had. When Ashton arrived in Malibu, Peyton was still reluctant to rekindle their relationship, and she asked Ashton for more time to mend, for more time to heal, in a profound existential way. They agreed to take it one day at a time. Now we move on to that theme of atonement again in Block 3, which will close out the final chapter in Volume 2. All right. Atonement in Shed Blood, First Sons and Last Daughters. The bridge painting became an expression of the grief Peyton carried and the relief she hoped to find. She changed the Gideon figure to one of being translucent because Gideon was never able to be fully grasped. A new self-portrait demands the shedding of blood for atonement. She needed to die to the old self. She pricked her finger and squeezed her own blood into the paint before completing the self-portrait bridge painting. It had to really include a shedding of blood. Next, a package arrives from Adler. Containing a pair of equestrian gloves and a deeply personal note. Adler admitted to being completely broken and in need of repentance. It gave Peyton cause to wonder if a reunion could actually be possible. Peyton sat facing the painting Retrouvailles, Reunion of the Self. Her children were to gather with her in Carmel, and she was very anxious for this family gathering after the death of Gideon. Bryce and William, Hanovi and Ricky all arrived. And I love this. Peyton took them into the studio and had them all face the bridge painting. She stood with them, and the entire family stood there facing the bridge self-portrait, which is obviously a mirror of every one of their lives. They're looking into themselves. They're looking into their own self-identity. They're examining themselves in a deeply existential, reflective way. And I love the way that the chapter ends. Hanovi speaks. While they're all standing there facing the self-portrait of all their own lives, Hanovi says, "I see blood and paint." And Peyton realized that her sons and her daughters were her greatest, overwhelmingly greatest wealth. So very, very powerful ending where they're all facing the bridge self-portrait, which is really a painting of every one of their own self-identity. Very, very powerful conclusion. That wraps up our final lesson in Volume 2 of the Saga Trilogy by Reine. And Volume 2 was very, very powerful, I thought. It had a great deal of existential depth. A great book for a book club. I mean, this would be a great book for a book club where you read it together, then gather once a week or whatever for a real discussion. And this is the kind of book that would be great for that. It really addresses very fundamental existential aspects of life. So it's very, very powerful. It's a great book club book. So we ended up with 20 lessons for Volume 2. About the same for Volume 1 as well, but if you haven't already, take the opportunity to pick up this Saga Trilogy by Reine on Amazon. It's got a great low price, and you will be deeply enriched by reading and participating in the Saga Trilogy by Reine. That wraps up First Sons and Last Daughters, Lesson 20 for Volume 2.